Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on today's police briefing. So my name is Max. I'm a business development manager here at Bedroq, and I'm joined by my colleague Michael Crabtree, who's our senior technical architect, and will be delivering today's session. So for those of you who are new to these events and to Bedroq, we are a specialist managed service provider of CCTV and ANPR surveillance solutions for police forces across the UK. And today's session is one of many webinars which we've released over the past couple of months with the aim of really helping police forces and professionals like yourselves to develop their understanding of trending and emerging technologies across the sector. And so for today's session, as you might have guessed, we will be focusing on automation. We obviously spend a lot of time planning these sessions, and we do listen to a lot of feedback from our attendees. And one point which has emerged again and again over the past couple of months has been around how we or police forces can help adopt automated solutions. And so we thought we might share some of our new innovations, some of the things which we've seen across the space over the past couple of years that will give you some inspiration for the future. So naturally, automation as a new concept isn't particularly new. We've seen the private sector drastically change business models through the introduction of automated solutions. And we're slowly but surely seeing this creep into the public sector in areas like education, healthcare, central government departments like DWP, Department for Transport. We're really seeing these organisations achieve quite drastic improvements to the way they deliver their services to the public, which ultimately is leading to better outcomes for citizens. And police forces are certainly a part of that trend as well. So as for today's agenda, what we're going to be discussing is as follows. So how automation can impact system management, how it can be adopted at the front line by police officers with ANPR applications. We're going to be looking at surveillance data analytics and the improvements we can achieve through automating some of our processes in this space. And then we're going to be talking about everyone's favourite topic, auditing and compliance, and how that aspect can be redefined through introducing automated solutions. And then finally, we'll be finishing off with a short summary and then a Q&A afterwards. So as always, these things tend to work pretty well with participation from both sides. So if you do have any questions, please pop them into the Q&A box, which I think is just at the top of your screens now. If you do have any more questions, we will be following up at the end as well to just get any feedback. So hopefully you find it beneficial. Mick, if I can pass it over to you now.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everybody. And welcome to another webinar. And as Max said, we're going to be talking a little bit about automation. So why would we use automation? Why would we use certain tools or tech or whatever it is or processes in as part of the work that we do? Well, one of the things about automated systems is they can potentially produce the same results, but without errors, and then produce those same results time after time. It can theoretically also free up time and resources because we're not having to recheck things, redo things, have them checked by somebody else, etc. Faults can be found and rectified quicker, and we're going to look at some of that in some of our other things later. And also the ability at the bottom line really to solve crimes and get information or whatever that would be much quicker. I'm going to start off by looking at system management. So what does that mean? So system management is about the management of either the networks or the applications or whatever it is that's providing that service. And one of the key requirements, of course, and you guys probably know this far more than even I could imagine, is that operations, they must be available 24/7. Now, these things need to be working, providing the information to whoever needs it, helping to save lives or stop things from happening and intervening or whatever that would be 24/7. So, we're also fully aware that if we want to do maintenance or anything like that, then it tends to be that asking for a window to do that can be extremely difficult because of that real key requirement that you have for your systems. So with automation, we can do things such as, hopefully allow systems to be online for longer by making sure that we've got resilience in place, or we've got the ability to have things temporarily bypass, so they will go into some kind of backup or resilience mode. either because there's been a problem and it will do that by itself and notify staff, or it'll be a case to be done on purpose so that we can do maintenance on the primary systems. And also, you know, if there's a problem, therefore we can rectify it while the service is still being provided. In certain scenarios, those systems can also self-heal in inverted commas. So when the problem goes away, everything goes back to the way it was. Anyone who works in an IT environment would know that it doesn't normally, we don't normally want that to do that, because we want it to leave it as it is, and then we can fully investigate what the issue was before we return it back into that steady state. So yeah, there's lots of things we can do within system management, as we said, in terms of system and network resilience. We can use things like SD-WAN in terms of our internet and network connections. We talked about that in a previous webinar. If anyone's not seen that, then do let us know and we can make that available to you. And we can deliver that ourselves via our Bedroq Security Internet and WAN service, or SOW as we call it. One really key thing really in terms of understanding system management and being able to react and have it create rules and automate is the creation of a NOC or SOC, otherwise a network operations center or a security operations center. That doesn't have to be as big of a thing as maybe those words sound. It could be something, you know, quite a simple, even just a simple network management system that's just checking things, polling things, and I'll show you some of the polling and reporting in a minute. That has that ability to proactively monitor and therefore alert operators or managers or whoever looks after the network, so that people can react to that and do something about it before it becomes a problem or as soon as possible. There's other tools as well, such as managing system updates. Again, in that idea of automation and security, one of the ways, again, from a 24/7 system to make sure that it's up 24/7 is to people turn off updates. Well, we do updates and the computer reboots itself at 3 in the morning, so we turn it off, you know, that kind of thing. Obviously, from a security perspective, that's really not a good thing. So there's tools and ways of managing that so that that can be checked and scheduled at a time that is more suitable. Because actually, with some, especially in CTG, sometimes some people may say, actually, a Tuesday morning is a good time, for example. So we've got tools that can help us out with that as well. What I'm going to look at with people next is if we're using a network management system. This is an example which I find really useful because it's not techie, because there's lots of things. Oh, we can look at exactly what's happening with a switch or a thing, and we can look at all of the data going through it in lots of detail, and we can get lots of detail, and that's great. But this example here of a UPS is actually a really useful one to show people, because the UPSs we tend to use, and most people most people use these types of UPSs, have the ability to have a temperature probe attached, so we can monitor the temperature of the cabinet. We can monitor the temperature, and you can see the little chart on the right there. That's showing one of the temperature probes, and you can see there for the last year, it's not really done a great deal, but it's remained fairly static. But it can display that information as historical, which is there, so we can look and we can see trends. We've also set a rule in this case that if the cabinet exceeds 40 degrees, send a text message so we can SMS out to the facilities manager, which we do for a number of people. And that lets them know that the air condition's failed. And as we know, if air condition fails on a big server room, then that could be hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of equipment that's damaged. So yeah, just a couple of little charts there that are useful. The other one with the big spiky squiggly lines, that is our incoming AC. And again, so that's our power. So if that's 0, then our power's gone. And again, for some of our customers, we have the ability to send text messages out to into facilities managers to let them know the power's gone, and they can do something about that, along with telling them what the current runtime is. So that little speed dial type thing shows that with this particular UPS, there was 175 minutes of runtime remaining. And in the text message, it will tell them that, so they know what kind of time frame they've got to be able to deal with the outage. So we've got some real world instances where using a network management system can help us with things other than the tech and the hardware and the devices. So we're going to move on now to user automation. So user management. I think it's fair to say, especially for anyone who works in, if anyone works in the IT arena, and also obviously for you guys who have to manage users, that it's possibly one of potentially one of the most amount of time spent dealing with things, new users, changing what they can get to, decommissioning users when they leave or when they no longer need access, things like that. So often the request to allow users onto a system is often last minute or at the time it's required. So for example, an officer is assigned to monitor a public event, football match, wherever it is. CCTV manager may not know about that until day before, night before, when they walk through the door. And therefore being able to react to that can be very difficult. Even if you do have a managed service, often user management isn't a P1, it's not a total outage. So therefore getting those users added and getting them onto the system can take a little bit of time. Which is what we're saying here, allowing so if you've got users who need to access the system, it's often an administrator, it's the service provider, whoever it is, and therefore that causes problems. So the difficulty there and the challenges around the fact that often user management is thought of as a simple low-level admin overhead is what it's thought about, and it's really not. Those users may require access to multiple applications, and also and things like that, maybe with different access rights and those types of things. One fantastic way of being able to speed that up and be able to give a bit of autonomy to either yourselves or to whatever, and certainly automation, is using things like single sign-on. So what can happen there is, for example, if you've got officers and they've already got their login to the IT system, and therefore whatever method that your CCTV or ANPR can interact with that. So some of that's using a Windows domain. So your IT department's got a Windows domain. But we do have some other customers who, for example, use Azure AD as their way of authenticating users. AWS as well is another one. What we can do is we can basically work with your IT department or whoever that is, and you guys can do that too, to work out how you can basically take a process whereby users are already been adding to that system. All they need to be doing is adding to, say, a folder. So it might be just be one called ANPR access or CCTV, this site, whatever site it is, this council or this particular area. And that will automatically filter through to your CCTV system or your ANPR system. And then that person can sit down at that computer, log in with their usual police credentials and be automatically logged into the CCTV system or the ANPR or whatever system it is that you're using. So that makes that process a huge amount quicker because it's follows the process all the way through. Removing the user is as simple as just removing them. If say that person leaves, if the IT department are already dealing with the process of someone leaving, then they're automatically taken off your CCTV or ANPR system at the same time. So again, the automation there means that you guys don't have to manage your users as they leave either, which is fantastic. We do have some people who are IT departments do allow them certain amounts of access to their user management, and therefore they can add users themselves. So the user already exists, and all they need to do is look up the user, put them into correct folder, and then they can then log in and they can view whatever video or access that they need. So analytics. How can analytics and the automation built in save us time and give us the ability to do more? So let's have a look at some of the challenges. And I've kind of split this into three areas, really. We've got challenges around covert surveillance. So sometimes that needs to be watched 24/7. And have we got the staffing to do that? And I know in the past, some people, what they do is if they've not got 24/7 coverage, then a person will come in the morning, and then while they've got their live video, they'll also have to periodically have a look through the video of the night before during that morning to check if there were anything that they need to do, any incidents, anything they need to respond to, anything to monitor or note. In terms of overt CCTV, quite often, and it's the same really for things like councils, isn't it? That an overwhelming amount of the feeds potentially anyway. You know, there could be hundreds, there could be thousands. And therefore, it's impossible to see everything all the time and all incidents on any camera. And therefore, time needs to be spent then maybe searching for incidents or maybe looking at them after the fact, as opposed to you being alerted to them potentially and being able to respond to an incident as it happens, rather than going back and collecting that information afterwards. And then there's also post-incident challenges. So footage is constantly overwritten, and we all know that, and yeah, we all got our 30-day limits. And it also takes a huge amount of, depending on the post-incident, then it can take a huge amount of resources to review hundreds or thousands of hours of footage potentially. So suddenly lots of resource and officers and people are involved in having to review all of that footage. And we're going to look at a particular example coming up. So if we have a look at things like covert operations and things like that, then we can set up alerts with our systems so that we can create a rule that checks. In this case, this is just checking vehicles on a watch list, so that every time that vehicle comes in, or in this case goes onto a drive or something like that, then we can have those rules already created so that when that car parks up, we'll know when it's parked up and we know when it leaves again, which is really useful. And also some other things, such as you can also set up an alert alongside that potentially that say just logs all vehicles, and do that as a separate rule, and we can filter those. And therefore, if suddenly we've got another vehicle coming and going, we go, oh, that's interesting. And what we can do then is maybe put that into a watch list, and then we can create a separate set of rules that start to map out when that vehicle's around, how often. So we can start to make use of these tools to really speed up and give us that awareness a lot quicker. So for post incidents, and I'm just going to go through a little requirement here. So say we've got a missing person, and that means that, say, for 20 cameras, we've got to take 48 hours of footage, 2 days worth of footage for 20 cameras, needs to be exported, check it for instances of that person, and we're going to try and see if we can work out their movements and determine where they've been in that town or place. So some quick maths, there's about 960 hours of footage, which if one person were to sit and watch all of that, and I appreciate the fact that you probably don't watch it in real time, you'll probably just sit and you'll run that, you know, obviously at 2 speed, 4 speed, or whatever it is. And if you worked 8 hours 5 days a week, and I'm waiting for the chuckles to come in because I know that no one does that, it would take you about 24 weeks for one person to do that. And I fully appreciate the fact that actually in real life you probably wouldn't do that. You know, even if 20 officers working in 12-hour shifts, so 10 hours a day and night, it would still take you 4 days to review all that at real time. Clearly, you can speed that up if you were to run that quicker. So what we can do in the time to process that video and to tag it with all the information ready for searching, we can do that in a day pretty easily. And then obviously so then the time for you to add a picture of the person to the system. And if anyone wants to see that in action, then we did do a webinar on that, this kind of technology works. And to review it and process the results. Well, if anyone saw that webinar, it was pretty quick, wasn't it? We were able to process that and have a look and see where that person went pretty quickly. So that suddenly reduces the amount of time and our ability to go, right, okay, we found that person on that time where they were, then our ability to start giving results and giving intelligence becomes so much quicker. And our ability to react is also a lot quicker. Let's move on to some, as Max said, everyone's favorite. As much as I said that the user management was probably something that took about a lot of say supervisors and managers' time. Possibly this one takes up a whole bunch of time as well for those same people in terms of reports for both auditing and compliance. Thing about those is, depending on what you're trying to audit and report on, it can be time consuming. It can sometimes be manual reports. It can sometimes be actually going into a system or whatever it is and actually sitting there and copying things out manually because the reports potentially aren't as clear as you'd like, or whatever it would be, or they just don't do that. So just the ability of automating those reports mean that the time saved means you've got much more time to be used for much more important jobs, such as reviewing those reports, reacting to those reports, and things like that, and managing your teams. So yeah, let's have a look at an example of that. So reports can be generated by network management systems, such as this one. And this is a great example. So this is a report, the last 7 days of the uptime of a whole bunch of ANPR cameras. And we can see for the last week, some were at 100%, and there were a few that were slightly less for whatever reason. So this could be pulled off weekly, daily, whatever that is, and automatically emailed out. I was having a chat with our engineers earlier just to ask them, what would an ANPR manager have done before this? And I think one of those is, well, we didn't get any reads for a while, so we went and had a look and found out it wasn't working. I was like, okay. So the ability to react really quickly, and yes, there's other ways as well. Clear tone, you can certainly go in there and you can set it to email, say if a camera has not received, the BOF has not received any reads in say an hour, and that's a great thing to do. So you can go into your systems and you can do that now. But also things like this where we're proactively monitoring the actual hardware, so that if there's a problem with that hardware, or it basically fails, or the operating system fails, or it needs a reboot and that type of thing, then we can see that pretty quickly and we can react to that camera not functioning. So those reports are fantastic. We can also, in terms of other applications, specific applications can also give reports as well, or alerts. As we said, things like the clear tone BOF can, if set up correctly, send an email and let people know that there's a potential problem with a piece of hardware, either or very quiet stream. And that is the difference as well. You may get an email saying that you've got no reads, but it may just be that you get 4 emails in the night because for 4 hours nobody drove up and down that street. Whereas obviously with a proper network management system, we can see the difference and we know that actually it was up and working. It was just that nobody drove down there. So compliance within CCTV. I know that some people will need to be able to run reports specifically for compliance because they want to know who exported footage and when. In certain scenarios, who was looking at cameras and when. And in the case of this particular report here, this was just to show when a camera had been moved. That might just be a case of an incident was missed because the camera had been moved to a different position, and we just wanted to know when that camera was moved out of that position. So yeah, we can also do application reporting as well. So what does all that mean? And I'm going to bring up a bit of a term that maybe rolls a few eyes, and doing more with less. But what does that actually mean? So doing more in less time and being more efficient. So we can speed up investigations. We can react to incidents quicker. We can ensure that our systems are available for use 24/7. With also the ability to be able to still do that maintenance and be proactive with that maintenance as well to make sure that no problems occur. We can do more with less resources. People are available to do more important and relevant work. Maybe be able to have a look at more incidents, more crimes, spot more incidents as they are happening. And also being able to achieve outcomes that would take a lot of resource and time as well. Again, if we have to review hundreds of thousands of hours of footage, then that might be something that might be incredibly difficult to do because of the amount of people and the amount of time required to do it. So what's the upshot? We can provide more outcomes and we can do it more efficiently.
But otherwise, our next briefing, which was going to be following up, we'll be following up with, is going to be held on the 14th of September. So please feel free to register your spot now. The registration portal is open. So yeah, we'd welcome you joining that. But otherwise, if there
Absolutely.
are no more questions, like I said, we will be following up with you individually. And yeah, if you do have any questions or queries, feel free to drop them in there. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for
I
your
think
time,
it's also
everybody.
worth mentioning as well, Max, that with the new release of the 2023 R2 X-Protect, that we're presenting the new features and innovations and things like that, and what's new in the new version pretty imminently as well, alongside Milestone. So I think we'll be sending some links out to that shortly as well, won't we? Just to invite people along, come and find out what's new, and what's going to be available and what new features people can take advantage of.
Exciting stuff. Well, thank you, everybody. I think we can bring the session to a close now, and yeah, look forward to presenting to you again. Cheers.
Thank you very much.